I was trying to say is this: we can speak to one another around a negotiating table. We each have our points of view, we each have ideas, we each have opinions. We could try to get to peace in that way by talking to one another. But nowadays we're speaking at one another. So everybody's so invested in their points of view that it's very hard to make progress. Another alternative might be to actually build something that speaks louder than words and that points to the possibility of peace. That in and of itself creates its own reality, a self-evident reality that says, look, people can get along, they can work together to solve common problems. That by itself will take you where you want to be and will open the door for future negotiations. We actually have to condition people for the possibility of peace. And to do that, you need substantive projects on the ground that speak louder than words. Projects like green industrial zones, where everybody is working together and humanizing each other in each other's eyes. Even though this is a substantive project, it wants to be a symbolic project too. Now, water is symbolic, but it's also substantive. Water is something that everyone needs to live. So it's symbolic on that basis because it's something that ties us together. But water is also substantive. People are running out of water. There could be a time coming relatively soon when water is more expensive than oil, and you could have wars starting because people run out of water. It's a good example of how the world is coming together for good and for not so good. So with regard to water, let's say we do a green industrial zone in Gaza, but we build it close to the sea. And suppose we use state-of-the-art research and technology, which we have access to bring in, let's say, water from the sea and to purify it and to make it clean drinking water that can be then used by the people of the region, both in Gaza and perhaps beyond Gaza. Remember, like we said before, the world is coming together economically. The world is coming together technologically. The world is coming together environmentally. Because of that, it's time to come together ideologically. The ideology we believe in is an ideology of common sense. It's a new framework for rational discourse based on common sense principles by which we speak to one another with common sense and with a sense of personal dignity. It's how we speak to one another. Now, a lot of this project in Gaza seems like it doesn't make sense. But that's the point. We want to create the most counterintuitive project imaginable to give life to what we intuitively know to be true. That at our core, we are all basically the same, and we share the same aspirations. And we think it's time, before time runs out, to give some semblance of reality to those shared aspirations. We met with people like George Mitchell when he was the envoy to the Middle East, and we met with a gentleman named Munib al-Masri in Nablus in Palestine, and he actually did say that in principle he's willing to be part of this team, the team we call Visionaries for Peace. That'll be a team of high-level players that actually have the wealth and the power to make something happen along these lines. Now, in terms of the reactions, a lot of people, are naturally skeptical that you could do something like this, especially in a place like Gaza. I mean, because if you look at it objectively, you say this is a stretch a little bit to believe that it can be done and it can work. But on the other hand, and this is maybe hard to imagine, what we're saying is we don't see any alternative. I would venture to say that there's no realistic alternative to this. You will have to find a way to give people a place at the table. You will have to find a way to inspire in people hope and deliver on that promise. People have to earn a living, and the world needs to be sustained. We have to do things to help preserve our environment. If we lose this environment, we don't have another one to go to. This is it. So I don't see what choice we have but to put a model together that brings it all together empowers people with a vision of hope, delivers on that vision, and creates a model that is sustainable to our planet.
Can you say something about the Marshall Plan?
Well, the Marshall Plan, there was World War II, and, it was one of the most devastating wars imaginable. And at the end of it, what did we do? We didn't abandon our enemies. We didn't try to sock it to them. We said, you know what? We're going to invest in you, and we're going to create vibrant economies and give you a place at the table, a stake in your future. If you have a person that feels alienated, has nothing to lose, that is a very dangerous person. But if you take that person, give him a place at the table, a stake in his future, now he has something to lose. He's going to calm down a little bit and work towards a better future for himself. And that's what we did with the Marshall Plan in places like Germany and Japan, and there's no reason why we can't do this in the Middle East. But this would be an Arab initiative, because I think that the leadership in that part of the world wants to take stock of this and wants to bring a new direction from within. But once they initiate that, then everybody will join in to help make it a successful effort. So you take ideology plus investment to sell people on a vision of hope, a vision of peace, prosperity, and freedom. And once you sell them on hope and deliver on that promise with jobs, you sustain that hope by launching public diplomacy programs which help to prop the vision up and carry it forward. I would say don't let love stop at the doorpost. Expand your notion of love. And if you have love, you have to show it. Does love exist if you don't bother to show it? So if people around the world are hungry, you would show your love either by feeding them or teaching them how to feed themselves. If you have a love for your backyard, then expand that to a love of the world and make it more sustainable. Take your notions of love, take the way you organize your family and the harmony you try to create in your family, and try to expand your horizons to apply those values and that sense of love to the world as a whole. And then that may require us to reset certain aspects of how we live, to reset how our economic system works so that everybody gets a place at the table, a stake in his future, to reset how we think about environmental policy so that, yes, we make money, but not by polluting the world. We make money by perhaps sustaining the world. Everything about this model is a little bit counterintuitive, but it's counterintuitive in a way to address problems in the region. So you cannot make it comfortable. You cannot make it easy. If it's easy, then it's another project. It's a feel-good project. Makes you feel good, but doesn't change the world. You need to change the world. The world is heading in a dangerous direction. To change the world, you have to create something that will provoke attention and that will inspire people to invest, even against their better judgment, in order to do something which is a little bit defiant, but which moves us in the right direction. Safety is always a concern. And we have to be honest, there will be people who may not want this to succeed. But I think if we have a buy-in from some of the key players, so for example, if Hamas, which runs the Gaza Strip, decides that this is something they want because they need to create jobs. So let's say a Saudi investor comes to them and says, I will invest if you secure this area. And if that security is backed up by Egypt, because Egypt can also send workers from Egypt to work there, because Morsi may decide that it's in his interest to create jobs. And Israel saying, we will provide security too, because Israel is saying, we would rather be surrounded by countries who have a place at the table, a stake in their future. It would be a better region for us if this were a safe and secure region. So if you have all the players buying in, you can provide security, because you have security from people who could be your enemies, but they're not your enemies, because they're buying into a common vision. And that's the thing. I think this is the kind of project which can cut through all these ideological barriers. Because everybody has to create jobs, everybody has to protect the environment, and everybody will reap the benefits out of the respect and dignity and pride that this project generates. Everybody buys in. Therefore, it'll be a secure project. That cannot be guaranteed, but are we going to let the fear of a possible threat to stop us from doing what we know needs to be done? Because people say, well, we've tried these kind of things before. They talk about the greenhouses that were in the Gaza Strip, where the greenhouses employed, they were run by Jews, but they employed about 6,500 Palestinian workers, and when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, the greenhouses were destroyed. So they use that as an example and say, well, you know, we tried these things before, they can't work. But here's the big point to be made here. All that was before the Arab Spring. And I believe that the Arab Spring is a game changer of sorts. And what the Arab Spring is saying, in effect, is that the people on the Arab street are crying out for change. They're crying out for a way to make a living, and they're crying out for the freedom to live their lives as they see fit. And this is a very palpable threat to some of the key players in the Arab world, because it's an existential threat, because people want to believe that there's reason to hope for a better future. And the leaders are going to have to find a way to deliver on that. So the grand bargain in this would be something along these lines, would be where some investors are creating a new model, and where the leadership is saying, look, we're willing to move the Middle East in a direction that points to the possibility of peace, prosperity, and freedom. And because we're doing that, the people on the street agreed to give time to effectuate positive change on a gradual basis instead of revolution on the doorstep. And this will probably be the greatest reason why a project of this sort can succeed. Not because people want peace, or people want a better world, or people believe in protecting the environment. All these are good things, but unfortunately, idealism in and of itself is not always a strong enough motivator. But here, in addition to doing good, you can put in place a solution that works to inspire people with hope and motivates them to have the patience to effectuate positive change on a gradual basis. That's the difference. That's why this could work now. That's why this is the right answer for our time. The initial idea came when we were in a restaurant in Lake Como. They had paper mats, and all of a sudden, it never happened to me before, there was almost like a vision that grabs hold of you. It's not that you have the vision, it's that the vision has you. So I just wrote quickly what I call an ideology of common sense, a shared belief based on universal truths and values, a new framework for rational discourse. And it looks to common roots, common values, common aspirations. Then you have what we call, I wrote, economic incentives or investments. So you could have public and private investment. One way of thinking of it is a Marshall Plan for the Middle East. But it would involve investing in a new model that inspires in people hope and delivers on that promise with jobs. There's a lot of models in place to keep people under control, to keep them patient, and to ease their restlessness. And these models are put in place for that purpose, to buy time and so forth. What we're saying is that there are parts of the world, like the Middle East, where the models that are put in place are no longer holding, where the people on the street are not buying the excuses of the past and are not buying into the models of the past. And the people on the street are saying, look, we want a life. It started with a guy named Mohamed Bouazizi in Tunisia, college educated, without a job, selling fruits and vegetables on the street. His vegetable cart gets confiscated because he didn't have a permit or something like that. And what happened was that he set himself on fire, and he set the region ablaze with the Arab Spring. And I think what he's telling us in that moment is, I would like a job, a way to support my mother and my sister, and I would like the freedom to live my life as I see fit.
Please leave a message at the beep.
So, okay. We're getting close to the impossible, but we're still within the realm of possibility. Impossible in the sense that people say, well, how are you going to turn the Middle East around? There might be a lot of competing ideologies. There might be a lot of people who are not interested in seeing the Middle East move in this direction. Fine. Taking all that into consideration, we still believe that given the problems we face now, the solutions to those problems could be packaged in the right way within the realm of possibility to effectuate positive change. And the way you do that is that you design the model to address each and every one of those problems individually. So if women are being marginalized, you empower female entrepreneurs. If you have a young generation that's alienated, you teach them vocational skills they need to perform green jobs. If the environment is being degraded, you have companies that are producing products to sustain and protect the environment. If there's a culture of intolerance, you have a community of artists that can inculcate and sustain a culture of tolerance. So in other words, whatever you see as a problem can be addressed in this model and can give people confidence that yes, it's possible, and in a way, it may be the only way to go. We've accomplished certain things, and we need to accomplish other things to make it happen. The hardest obstacle is opening these doors. A few introductions is what we need. So if people know of someone we should be speaking with, then they would help us make those connections and get a few introductions so that we could make our sales pitch. It'll be a collaborative effort, so we will try to convince people to make this happen, but to do that you need those meetings, and that's what we could use, plus the fact that if people have opinions about what we're trying to do, or really about anything that relates to it, we would welcome for them to come onto the website www.sellingavisionofhope.org. They could come on the website, they could read about what we're trying to do, they could comment, they could even bring new ideas to the table, they could criticize some of what they don't agree with, or they can provide new insights. You know, we're not saying that we've figured everything out. We're saying we have a vision and we think it can work. To give life to it, it would be nice to have people commenting about it or blogging about it. And also, if people know, you may not know a wealthy Saudi prince that may be interested, but you may know people who know people, and little by little you make those connections. You're not going to force people to do this. It's something that you suggest. You suggest it with passion, because it's going to require a lot of passion to make this happen. But you suggest it and you let people think about it. And initially they may say, hey, what's this guy talking about? But little by little, when you start looking at the existential threats, the problems you face, and you start putting the pieces together in the right way and start thinking about it logically, I think almost inevitably you will come to a place that tells you that the answer is going to be along the lines of the project we're suggesting. That you're going to find a way to take people that are now alienated, that they're displaced, that they're frustrated, that they're resentful, and somehow take those emotions on the street that you see and point them in a more positive and hopeful direction. So there's a lot of rage out there, there's a lot of frustration. You take those feelings and you move the pieces around a little bit, and all of a sudden people are still just as emotional and passionate, but about something that's constructive and something that points in the direction of positive change. That's what you're shooting for. And we think we've designed a project that looks at the reality the way it is and repositions the pieces in a slightly different way, resets some of our priorities, and allows people to give life to their hopes, to realize their aspirations, but in a constructive way, and it'll solve our long-term problems with long-term solutions. Ideology plus investment equals hope. And with hope, all things are possible, even the impossible dream of peace.